All right, my loves, we're going to talk about something that is obvious to me, but may not be obvious to others. And specifically, there's a certain incident that is inspiring this video, and that is the murder-suicide committed by MysticxLipstick. Now, this is a woman who experienced psychosis relative to the eclipse, whether it was caused by the eclipse or whether it was fear she held surrounding programming she held about the potential ongoings of an eclipse. That doesn't really matter. What we're going to talk about in this video is the frequency that I see surrounding this event and what that frequency means. Now, I am not an astrologer, but what I do know is that an eclipse is a literal coming together of action and emotion, right? You have sun and moon, okay? So it's going to look different for different people. I love eclipse moments because it is an opportunity for me to further my manifestations relative to my spiritual ability. Because of the Regulus conjunction I hold, it has always contributed to wonderful shifts for me. Monumental shifts, literal metamorphosis of who I am and walking even further into my power. And that actually exuding itself in my daily life. But that's just me. Everyone's different. But I want to make sure you guys are releasing any sort of subconsciously programmed fear you hold around something that can be so profoundly powerful and beneficial to all of you. Now, let's get into the frequency surrounding this event. So this is a woman who stabbed her boyfriend to death, pushed her 2 children out of a moving vehicle, resulting in the death of one, and then drove into a pole or a tree, obliterating the vehicle and killing herself. All because she was afraid of an apocalypse. Now, this is important to understand because the sequence is given to me not only by the state she's in, her own frequency. This is 17 frequency, which means she is in a 70 cycle, okay? But the ages of her children as well, 8 months and 9, which gives us a sequence of 7089. Let's get into what that means. Now, 70 is going to be such an important number for anyone that is spiritually awakened to understand, because spirituality without inner work and full knowledge of one's own psyche can be very dangerous. I don't care how spiritual you are, how much you practice, so on and so forth. Without inner work, without inner stabilization, without grounding, without understanding the darkest recesses of your own mind, you are not in control of what potentially could happen to your mind, okay? And here's the problem with that. We're not really in control of anything anyway, right? Free will is an illusion, my personal opinion. But we do have the ability to influence certain aspects of our lives. In a 70 cycle, and I'm speaking as someone who has endured a 70 cycle, and yet here I am today, stable, balanced, enlightened. But I wasn't always this way. When we talk about a 70 cycle, we're talking about psychosis, we're talking about delusion, we're talking about an extreme amount of paranoia or pronoia, right? It's almost like a merging of the two, okay? There's like this feeling of being targeted, this feeling of being rejected, this feeling of being watched. But there's also this simultaneous feeling of being chosen, grandiose sense of self, okay? And feeling incredibly connected with the universe. It's all about us in a 70 cycle. But 70 cycles are also incredibly erratic, okay? So it is being swept up in a tornado of darkness, essentially, okay? And this is important to understand because as we continue this sequence, we get to 8 and 9. So we decipher it 70, we decipher it as 70, and then we decipher it as 89. So let's get into what 89 means. And then we'll total the sequence, which gives us 24. And that explicitly tells us why this had to occur. Now, to understand my perspective, you have to respect karma. You have to respect reincarnation. If you do not understand or respect those concepts, my perspective is not for you. If you are someone that thinks that you can attain spiritual mastery and enlightenment in one lifetime, my perspective is not for you. If you think that you are born into each incarnation and you are just the way you are, and you don't have to do anything to grow, and you are not rectifying any sort of energetic exchanges or karmic imbalances, my perspective, again, is not for you. Now, with that being said, when we have 8 pulling in 9, we are talking about the realm of balance, the realm of justice, the realm of karma as it relates to your actions and reactions, pulling in the frequency that is 9, the number of completion, the number of endings, the number of new beginnings. Okay, so what does this mean? We also have the total 17 here, like I said before. 70 cycles, 17 frequency being 89 frequency, totaling 24. So when we talk about 8 pulling in 9, we're talking about karma of one's actions or reactions, pulling in and ending, pulling in completion, pulling in a new beginning. Now, it's also to understand when we're talking about 8, we are talking about a reversing of roles, tables turning. So let's use our 8th eye together, shall we? What could be a circumstance you can envision occurring in these beings' previous life that this experience, this event, reverses the role relative to? Let me give you an example. Let's say these beings come from a time, let's say, where child sacrifice was prevalent. It's still prevalent today, but not as much, not publicly. It used to be done very publicly. Look into Moloch, okay? And other deities that human beings sacrifice their children to. Let's say in that lifetime, this 8-month-old, key number there, 8, which indicates further the reversing of these roles and the karmic justice at play. Let's say in that lifetime, that 8-month-old baby was the mother who sacrificed MysticxLipstick to Moloch or other child-consuming gods or deities, entities, lesser beings. Think of it that way. So what would be the only way to rectify that energy? We talk about the number 5. We're talking about ego. When we talk about ego, we're talking about trauma programming. When you talk about trauma, what kinds of things contribute to those energies being held on by the psyche? Okay, so when you understand that, you can understand this. And when you understand that 9-year-old who was also involved but didn't pass, what do you think that could entail? A bystander, perhaps? Or someone, a being involved in this event, in this experience, in this sacrifice, so to speak, in a more peripheral manner. But when you talk about 8, you're also talking about energies coming in, tenfold. Okay? You might have just watched. You might have been a bystander watching this publicly with a whole multitude of other beings. We always reap what we sow. And we must always pull in experiences that will help us better understand how problematic certain ongoings truly are. And then when we decipher the total of this sequence and get 24, we're talking about a relational because of 2, energetic exchange or agreement because of 4. Relative to one's domestic life, diurnal matters, efforts and energies. So when you understand karmic balance and you understand agreements and energetic exchanges relative to all darkness, relative to all experiences, and you understand the goal of the soul is karmic balance, you can start to better understand these kinds of experiences. This could not have been prevented. This is not clinical failure. This is spirituality. Because let me remind you, my loves, inner work is magic. It's transmutation. It's alchemy. External methods or practices of magic, again, magic. Magic is very real. It creates webs across this realm of reality. It creates vortexes of energy coming and going. But there is an additional factor that is a substructure of all reality, and that is karma. That is balance. That is justice. And magic only works within the confines of one's karmic path. When it comes to 8, karma, whether of the spirit or of the soul, please release the illusion that it could have been different. It happened because it had to. Have a great day, you guys.